Hello and welcome back to my Sonic the Hedgehog Retrospective, where I take a look at every Sonic the Hedgehog game I can get my hands on in the order they were released. If you are just joining us, feel free to check out the rest of the series and see how we got this far. Today we'll be taking a look at the next game in the series, Sonic Spinball for the Sega Genesis. Released at the end of 1993, this is the first real oddball game in the home console series. Yeah, I know there was Waku Waku Sonic Patrol Car arcade game, but good luck finding one of those in current year in the US, and also why I said home console. Pretty much the only reason this game exists is because Sonic 3 was delayed. The bigwigs at Sega asked Sega Technical Institute to produce a smaller Sonic game that could be completed in about 6 months, so Sega would still have something to release in time for Christmas. STI then handed this task off to Peter Morawick. I'm almost certain I've mispronounced his name, whose only experience at the time was doing some simple graphics enhancements for the special stages in Sonic 2. The marketing at Sega noticed that the Casino Night stage in Sonic 2 was one of the more popular stages in the game, so it was decided to make a whole game around that concept. Peter Morawick was inspired by other pinball games on the Amiga, specifically Pinball Dreams, so he decided to design the stages in Sonic Spinball to resemble actual pinball tables as much as possible. He threw together a quick demo animation for the upcoming Consumer Electronics Show. However, he was unable to animate the fast-scrolling backgrounds on such short notice, so the video did not go over well with the core Sonic team. Undaunted, the team still moved forward and managed to get the game to store shelves by Thanksgiving 1993. The story this time around is Robotnik yet again looking for a way to turn little woodland creatures into mindless robots. This time he sets his sights on an active volcano called Mount Mobius. Yes, Mobius, from the comics and cartoon series, making this the only Sonic game to ever directly reference the Mobius setting. Anyway, Robotnik sets up shop in the volcano, creating the Vedro Fortress. Of course, Sonic has to swoop in and save the day with the help of Tails and his plane. Oddly enough, this game probably has the most coherent story in the whole franchise so far. In previous games, there really isn't much of a rhyme or reason to why Sonic moved on to that particular area after finishing the previous area. Why is Sonic in some old ruins with lava everywhere just after being in some lush lakeside forest? Or why is Sonic suddenly in some partially flooded old ruins just after passing through one of Robotnik's chemical plants? You just arrive at the next level and it's like, alright, guess this is where I am now. The only real sign of progression is each level seems a bit more technological and polluted than the previous one. In Sonic Spinball, you see in the opening cutscene that Sonic jumps off the plane into the water. Then, when the first level starts, you see him jump up out of the water into the sewers at the bottom of the mountain. Then from there, he moves up the mountain into the power station of the whole operation. Then he moves even higher into the machine itself, where you can actually see where Robotnik is turning all the animals into machines. Then after that, you reach the mouth of the volcano at the top, where you fight Robotnik himself. It's simple and short, but I just think this level progression makes more sense than any of the previous games. Overall, the tone of the game seems a little darker than previous games as well, especially once you get to the machine level. It's pretty clear that Sonic is working his way up through the inner workings of some sort of factory, culminating in the machine. This level portrays very well the fact that you are inside a giant machine, with pistons and wires and computer chips everywhere. But then there's the boss battle. The previous boss battles had Sonic fighting machines with Robotnik's face, but not this one. You're actually in the machine that is turning all your woodland friends into robot slaves. The machine is even still running when you get there. You can see random creatures being piped in, and then watch their skeletons as the machine converts their flesh into their new metallic forms. Sonic tries desperately to save as many as he can, breaking the pipes to the machine, then the machine itself as fast as he can. But it's impossible to save them all. Sure, Sonic can break open the badniks and set them free again, but he can never take away their mental anguish of having their bodies grafted into machines that all those little critters had to go through. It's also confirmed that the design and art style for the machine is based on the scrapped Genocide City stage for Sonic 2. Add on the fact that the first two bosses are also pretty creepy, and you realize this game is kinda unsettling. The gameplay itself isn't really much to write home about. If you didn't get past the art style and music, then the gameplay probably won't win you over either. I mean, I guess it plays well enough for a pinball game on the Sega Genesis, but the frame rate kinda chugs and it makes it kinda difficult to make precision shots. Also, with the low frame rate, it's easy to miss Sonic with the flippers when he's coming down really fast, leading to some cheap deaths a little too often. The developers kinda made up for this by remembering that Sonic is a character and not just a pinball. You do have some mid-air control while moving around, and there's even a small bit of platforming in the levels as well. The game does kinda shine when things are going fast and Sonic is bouncing on enemies and bumpers and other various point makers. But again, because of the frame rate, it's very difficult to do anything with any accuracy. I think they did a pretty good job of making the levels feel like actual pinball tables. They definitely delivered on that point. The Chaos Emeralds are handled differently than other core Sonic games. They are basically just keys to the boss room. All of the Chaos Emeralds are hidden in each level, which makes this game more similar to the 8-bit Sonic games. The first two levels have 3 emeralds each, and there's 5 in the last 2 levels, meaning this one mountain by itself has a total of 16 emeralds. But again, they're really nothing more than boss room keys in this game. Each boss room is completely inaccessible until you've found all the emeralds in the current level. One thing I found interesting about this game is, once I started to learn the layout of the levels and where all the emeralds are, my scores started going down. The only way to maximize your score is basically to just goof around in each level instead of going for the main objective. If you try to beat the game quickly, you won't get a very high score. But it's not like the score matters all that much anyway. There's a high score table in the options menu, but don't go in there. It resets anytime you turn off the game, so it's pointless. Between each main level, you automatically get a special bonus stage where you play as Sonic as he plays a regular-sized pinball table. I've always liked these stages because I thought they looked pretty cool, with the pseudo 3D perspective and the detail of Sonic's reflection showing his eyes tracking the ball. You can even use the D-pad to bump the table and try to influence the ball a bit, but doing too much will result in a tilt. If you thought the frame rate and physics were wonky in the main stages, it's even worse here. The weird, almost 3D perspective actually makes it slightly harder to track where the ball actually is. Also, it seems like the flippers are spaced a little wider than they should be, because it's really easy to miss the ball when it's coming down at the wrong angle. Once you complete the objective of the stage, or lose all your balls, then you just move on to the next main level. Completing the stage nets you a nice amount of bonus points, but that is ultimately pointless. If you lose your balls, then you get nothing! There's also a super secret multi-ball special stage that can only be reached by collecting every ring on the current stage and then finding one of the sparkly portals hidden in the level. This transports you to a stage where you need to take out a crab enemy, and you get to play with 3 balls at the same time. Also, I want to point out here that this is the only Sonic game to ever directly reference the comics and Sat-Am TV show. The first special stage has pods that you need to break open. When you do break them open, some of the characters from the show and comic come out, including Rotor, Bunny Rabbit, Mutsky, and Princess Sally Acorn. The Spinball team got to tag along with the rest of Sonic Team to visit Deke Animation Studio in Burbank, California. There, they were shown storyboards of the new show they were developing. This explains why Sally in this game has one of the wrong color palettes. They did use character designs from the show in Spinball, but the head of STI at the time, Roger Hector, also wanted to try and come up with a more story-driven Sonic game based on the show concepts they were shown. but ultimately Yuji Naka gave the idea an official thumbs down and cancelled the project. The Sonic franchise was still relatively fresh, and this new show was too much of an unknown to stake the success of a whole new game. All that remains is this mock-up animation that Morawick made, similar to the one he did for Spinball. I had more to say about the special stages than I realized. The art style is pretty good, in that this is obviously not done by core Sonic Team artists kind of way. The Sonic sprite is slightly smaller than in the main games, and the black outline kinda makes him seem even smaller than he really is. However, he is animated pretty well. The running and flipping up ledges has a nice cartoony feel. You can definitely tell that there is more of a Western influence in the art direction, especially in the couple of squash frames Sonic has when he lands. Even the enemies look a little more rounded and cartoony than in previous games. Some of the badniks almost have a Warner Brothers flair to them. After the Spinball team visited Deke Animation, Peter Morawick even mentioned how the storyboards looked very Warner Bros-y. So you can kind of see that influence in the game. Also, fun fact. The Sonic comic from Archie was originally supposed to be a spin-off from the Sat-Am cartoon, not the other way around. The reason I bring this up is because this sprite here from the first special stage is Mutski, Sonic's dog. Don't think too hard about that. Only thing is, Mutski never really appeared in the show in this form, except in a photo in one scene in the second season. But he appeared like this in the comics. But wait, there's more. Take a look at the Princess Sally sprite here. Now look at her design from the show. Nope. How about the pilot episode? Close, but still not quite the same. Now let's look at her in the first issue of the comic. There it is. So the Sat-Am show and the comics both spawned from the same development files and artwork. Some people think that the show is a spin-off of the comic because the comic was released first. However, the only reason the comic was released before the show is because, well, comic books don't take nearly as long to make as animated TV shows. So the first few issues of the comic had Sally in the wrong colors, then later synced up once they were finalized for the cartoon. But that's a topic for another video series. Anyway, back to the game. Jeez, I need to stop going off on these tangents. Like I said before, the levels look and feel like good pinball tables. Everything stands out and it's easy to tell what gives you points and what hazards to avoid. The color palettes of each table work really well. The sewers look nice and slimy, the powerhouse is brightly lit and looks hot like a molten steel factory. The machine is cold and dark with pistons and wires everywhere. And the showdown at the top of the volcano has this cool gradient into the night sky as you travel higher to get to Robotnik. Honestly, I didn't really like the visual style as a kid. It didn't look nearly as neat and clean and polished as the main Sonic games, but now that I'm older, it's kind of grown on me. Especially now, knowing how few people worked on it and how short a time they had to get it done. As I mentioned earlier, if the wonky physics and art style don't win you over, the music probably won't either. For me, the music is an acquired taste. The composer for this game was Howard Drawson, who made his gaming debut with this, just like Peter Morawick. For me, the Genesis has two styles of sounds. There's the smooth sound that some composers can get out of the hardware like in previous Sonic games. Or other games like Streets of Rage. And Vector Man. Then there's this kind of raw buzzsaw kind of sound, like in the Road Rash games. Or Musha. or X-Men, or Comics Zone. Spinball here kinda leans into that latter category. And unfortunately, this style is usually the example used when people try to argue about how bad the Genesis sounds. I've heard people call it fart music, and honestly, that's a pretty accurate name. I'm not a big fan of this sound personally, except when it's appropriately used in more rock-style music like Musha and Road Rash. However, I do enjoy most of the soundtrack of this game. The music in each level is simple but effective. Each track has a nice good beat that keeps you going without really thinking about the music, adding flavor to the visual style, which is what good background music is supposed to do. Overall, my favorite tracks are The Sewers, followed by Showdown, and then The Machine with its nice bass lines. Even the title jingle is pretty catchy. Another fun fact: Howard Drawson originally composed the title jingle to sound like the title songs from Sonic 1 and 2, but that song was licensed to Masato Nakamura's band Dreams Come True, so they couldn't use it. However, the track is still there on the cartridge. Powerhouse has a good overall sound, but I don't really like whatever instrument is in the beginning of each song loop. But overall, the soundtrack is pretty okay. And I like it more now than when I was a kid even. Wait, what are you doing? I told you not to check there! No! I was hoping to just forget that music track. This is probably one of the worst pieces of music composed on the Genesis. This is everything the haters say is bad about Genesis music. As good as the rest of the soundtrack is, this is nails on chalkboard bad. I'm genuinely sorry for making you listen to this. Overall, I think Sonic Spinball is a good game. It has definitely grown on me over the years. Kinda like that kid you went to school with who you didn't really like much at the time. Then you look back and realize they never really did anything wrong. They just rubbed younger you the wrong way, and now older you is over it and realize they're an okay person. The Spinball team didn't try to be overly ambitious. They set a goal to make a small game in a short amount of time, and I think they delivered. Sonic Spinball is still a solid Genesis title, given what they had to work with. Plus, it launched the careers of both Peter Morawick and Howard Drawson, who went on to work together on Comics Zone and the Vigilante 8 series. If you haven't played Sonic Spinball, I definitely recommend giving it a try. The Genesis cartridge can be picked up pretty easily at most retro game stores, but you can also find it on Sega Smash Pack on Game Boy Advance, Sonic Mega Collection Plus on PS2, GameCube, and Xbox, Wii Virtual Console, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection on Xbox 360 and PS3, and in the Mega Drive Classic Collection on Steam. That's not a comprehensive list, just the ones I think are easiest to get a hold of. Also, before I go, here's a little secret. There's a glitch in the first level that allows you to get infinite lives. On your last life, drop down into the oil drum in the upper level and move to the edge of the screen. This can be done on either side. Then jump out of the barrel and move just enough so you hit the sewage with Sonic heading toward the edge of the screen. If done right, Sonic's death animation will play twice and you will have infinite lives. You can get the double death animation at any time, but it will only give you infinite lives if you do it on your last life. Enjoy.